Well, good afternoon, everybody. Let me just take a moment to really invite everybody. We've been sitting. If you haven't had a chance to stand up, you might want to just stand up, really honor the body in this space. But because I really appreciate you staying here and being here, and I know the body might be tired a little bit from having stayed listening to this quite enlightening and really engaging, fabulous conversation that you've just listened to with Russell Simmons. My goodness. So here we are. Here we all are. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. If you would please now take a moment before you take your seats and really just look into the faces of the people around you if you haven't already. Really, really notice that we are in this. We are in this. We are in this together. Yes? Yes. Yes. We've been in this conference together. We've been learning together, and we're going to keep learning and taking what we're learning out into the world. And that's what my talk is about. That's what my talk is about. It's about, as you know, it's called Brokenhearted and Brave. Brokenhearted and Brave. Engaged mindfulness and a new birth of criminal justice reform. So I'm going to talk to you about some of the work I've been doing at the intersection of mindfulness and this thing we call justice in America. And you can already imagine that that's going to be an intersection that's not one for the faint of heart, right? Thus the reference to the notion of bravery right up there in the title. But also, I'll say from my own experience as an African-American woman born in the South, in the era of the sort of what many of us call the second Reconstruction, right? The first being the Reconstruction that happened after the Civil War, the second being the Civil Rights Movement that I imagine at least some of you might have actively participated in making happen at some earlier part in your life in some way or another. I want to honor the fact that what I'm going to talk about is something that I know is near and dear to my heart, but I know it's near and dear to the hearts of many people in the room as well. So brokenheartedness is something that many of us bring to our work in law for many obvious reasons, perhaps, and maybe not obvious. As an African-American woman growing up in the South, seeing the legacies of segregation and slavery all around me, seeing the ways in which the notion of what might be possible for me never included this. I was born into a family with very few resources. So we had, for many generations, been part of the community of American citizens, black citizens who were relegated in a caste-like way to the bottom of society, right? So no opportunities, no real particularly serious opportunities for education. Really limited expectations in terms of what kind of roles we would play in the world. So I'm here standing on the shoulders of a lot of giants, people I know and don't know, people that I know have worked over the course of their lives to make this world a better place. And I know some of them, in fact, I know, because I know who you all are in this room. So I want to honor some of my teachers as I go forward here. They do include the incredible John Kabat-Zinn. The incredible John Kabat-Zinn, with whom I've been honored to walk this journey toward becoming a kind of a mindfulness teacher in the world, with a commitment to bringing these practices more broadly into the world. And I could say so much more about the way in which John's work has been a kind of a deep, ongoing, and abiding inspiration to me in the effort to bridge these two very different, or many, many different communities of practice, ways of thinking and being in the world. I think that kind of work to bring these practices into everyday life is really what we're all here about. So I want to thank John. I want to thank Norman Fisher, who's a Zen priest who has been instrumental in the San Francisco Zen community for many years, and for the last 10 or 12 years has worked with a number of lawyers in the Bay Area who have been interested in bringing mindfulness into law. He runs a center called Everyday Zen now, but he really has been like a core, central, deep Buddhist teacher for a number of us who are interested in bringing these practices in. And then finally, I want to recognize a teacher whose name probably nobody else in this room knows. This is a woman whom I had the the pleasure and privilege of waking up next to and around for the first few years of my life quite frequently. I'm talking about a woman who did not have a prestigious job or role in life. She cleaned houses for other people. She was a domestic servant. She was my grandmother, and she had also been called into the ministry, kind of a Christian holiness path. So I saw her every single day get up before dawn and engage in deep practices of inner centering, of recognizing her own innate dignity, of rediscovering who she was. And so my grandmother, Nanny Suggs, I'm bringing into this room, into this conversation, as one of the teachers on whose lap I sit, shoulders I stand. And I want to invite us to be in reflection right now, each of you as well. Think of those teachers, often unnamed, from your heritage, from your family, from your social group, who are here with you now and who stand with all of us in our efforts to make the world a better place. So I'm going to be talking about ways that we are using these practices, these contemplative practices, to deepen understanding about issues relating to race, racism, and law in particular. There are many, many different ways that, for me, these practices can assist us in building a better world. This is just one piece of that project, and really only one piece of the project that is meaningful to me. I've got, just like each of you, a broad and deep range of concerns that may travel under the notion of justice. And yet this obviously is one that's near and dear to my heart. I've gotten a picture here of an African Methodist Episcopal Zion Church. I captured this in our capital, Washington, D.C. I was walking through that at a conference a month or so ago, and saw this, liberty and justice for all. And I just want to recognize that yesterday we had this fabulous panel, the Black Lives Matter panel. I want to kind of really just lift up those who were there and really just ask those teachers who were there, speakers, to stand just a little bit, honor and recognize, because I want to link what we're talking about here to that. Teachers who were there, woohoo! Yes, right? I want to name the way in which that panel opened up this conversation in so many ways about who we really are, who we're willing to listen to, what teachers we want to recognize, and what issues we see as worthy of our work. And so I was so moved by the way that panel opened up a broad and deep conversation about the way in which these issues really are right with us in our own movement, in the wisdom community, right? They're not just out there. And the way that, as John often says, what we're engaged in right now is the curriculum. We saw that so beautifully manifest. Those of you who were at the presentation, who were maybe at John's presentation, saw that wave of humanity and beautiful people coming and joining with the Black Lives Matter panel from John's. I think I could say, I have a lot of things that I could say, and I've got a whole PowerPoint that I'm deviating from at the moment, because I want to be here, right here with you at the real curriculum of this conference, not really just talking about what I came to say, right, but what I'm coming to say, what's coming to me right now, which is, my friends, my beloveds, we have a lot of deep work yet to do. I mean, and that sounds like a cliche. I guess what I want to say is, I believe we're all here because we really are already seeking in various ways to transform the world. We are. And there is this way in which this piece about understanding race and racism is a really difficult one, and yet, who but we? Who if not we? Those of us who've been privileged to have been taught and been invited and been allowed, if you will, had an opportunity to sit with these profound teachers of wisdom and carriers of wisdom traditions. And I do mean wisdom traditions, deep traditions about how to live and how to live in unity and in integration, all the things we've been talking about for the whole day today and yesterday as well. We have been privileged to engage with those teachings, and they've uplifted each of us, am I right? Have we not gotten something, right? Even if we weren't going to the cushion to get something, we are strengthened by this work. And I believe that part of that, what responsibilities that gives us is a responsibility, an obligation to really turn toward the suffering that is we're often rewarded to turn away from. We're often rewarded not to really look deeply at issues of race and racism. I'm in law, so I'm trying to do that work in my discipline. And so part of what I want to say right here, and maybe have a chance to get back to it at the end, but in case I don't, because I am deviating, I do believe that the call of our lives is to really look at how what we're doing right now can be the deepest manifestation of who we are. We can always change what we're doing, and many of us have over our lifetimes. We've shifted, and we've taken on new careers. But at every turn, there's an opportunity to look around and ask, what profound piece of the work is here for me to do right now? And that includes, I think, right here in this conference. I will say that one of the speakers today talked about telling our stories and sharing our stories. I spoke yesterday about community-engaged mindfulness, and I believe we are in community always, many communities at once, and this is one. And storytelling certainly has proven, much research has shown, and beyond that, our own life experience shows, how valuable just telling our stories may be and can be to our being able to understand each other in our beautiful, magnificent particularity, and as a means through that of opening our hearts to the ways in which we're similar and different and beautiful and crazy, and finding that integrated unity that all of us, I think, seek. So I'll tell a tiny bit of my story, the story that got me to this place where I am really committed to bringing mindfulness in what I call an engaged way, right? Really bringing it into real problems in the world. I grew up in, as I said, North Carolina, but I ended up teaching at the University of San Francisco. And what I see my job as really using my role as a law professor to help create opportunities for people to have the lived experience of interconnectedness and unity through celebrating and sitting with the suffering and engaging around our particular lived experiences in the world. And so we do that more and more using mindfulness. We do that more and more explicitly using practices of sitting together, practices of mindful listening and speaking together, loving kindness practice, compassion practices, all the kinds of practices you guys are already doing. We're bringing that into law school classes now with a commitment to really re-engaging what we do mean by justice and really being in a position to participate in this profound conversation about what justice really means. I think of law really as being an opportunity to have that kind of challenging conversation about what is justice. And again, part of the reason why I think of it in terms of issues of race is because of the particular racial body in which I was born into, sort of thrown into existentially, right? I didn't create this body. It's a gift. I'm willing to take it for what it is. I think all of our bodies might be entered into in that way. How can I use my experience and how can I live my experience in a way that is itself an answer to the deepest questions of my being? What does it mean to be human? What does it mean to be human here with you trying to change the world for a better place? So yes, I think there is a way that our practice can get us involved in these questions of who are we, really, really, really? Who was this little girl who grew up in North Carolina with a grandmother in those holiness churches on Sunday, singing together? When we'd be sitting like this, people would almost always hold hands. So if you guys are willing, and there's a person next to you, if you wouldn't mind, you don't have to hold hands, maybe just look into the face of the person next but I really want some connection in this space, some bringing home the sense of church that I'm speaking about as part of my foundation up here, right? We actually shook hands, would hold hands, and somebody would often just start singing. Just felt, that's right. Sometimes it's sung, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine, let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Now we're building community, right? Now we're building community, right? That's what we came to do. And again, I'm drawing on my own that's my tradition. That's part of my heritage. That is part of what makes this work meaningful to me. And again, everybody has some beautiful lesson that I believe you were sent here to bring in that very same way. What is the lesson of your lives? Again, for me, I'm contacting the big present with my law students with an effort, a conscious effort of trying to figure out ways of realigning this thing called the justice system so that it begins to tap in a different vision, one that is oriented around notions of profound and always already interdependence and interconnectedness, as opposed to the basic story of law, which is we are isolated, atomized beings, only safe when we have I got my rights and you got yours, don't tread on me. A very kind of at the bottom libertarian, to use that phrase as an intellectual philosophy and jurisprudential idea. Bottom line of law is really, really very much about, I got mine, you got yours, don't tread on me. And constantly reinforcing this sense of fear that underlies that, and this sense of the human being that's about, we are just one step away from chaos and the kind of bloody battle of the state of nature, right? And so the notion that has been brought to law so much has been one that's divided us. And we have been about the business of bringing to law a different approach, rethinking legal education and law practice to bring mindfulness in. And from all of that work, really engaging in the suffering of other people and changing the world. I'm going to close by noting something that I'm happy to talk with anybody who's interested in. I'm happy to talk more about it. We have been bringing mindfulness to the legal system in California, in D.C., all across the country. There's a whole network of us. And from that, we have gotten international attention for the work to really transform from communities to people who are police officers to judges to prosecutors to defense attorneys. Just this picture, the one on your right, was taken in Kalamazoo, Michigan, which, as many of you know, if any of you are from Kalamazoo or from Michigan, you've read in the newspapers, there was tremendous suffering there, a kind of a mass shooting that happened in Kalamazoo just while we've been here communing and feeling our way to a new way of being in the world. The world that we are meeting is still going on with all of its violence and all of its pathologies. I was in Kalamazoo with this beautiful group of lawyers just in September, really trying to rethink the legal education system. So it's dear to my heart that they're having this kind of suffering right there in a place that nourished us. So that work is ongoing. I wish I had time to name all the incredible people in this picture. But Charlie Halpert, I'll just notice him. He's like the father of mindfulness and legal education. I've been working with him for some 12 years. He's been working at it for 20 or so. And he, at Berkeley and at other places, has really helped form a network of people who are doing this. There are people up there, Fania Davis, Angela Davis' sister, who is doing this phenomenal work to bring restorative justice to kids in Oakland and all over the country. She's right now trying to get with Brian Stevenson, a famous death penalty lawyer some of you may know of, a kind of truth and reconciliation restorative justice process around racial injustice in America and have that move forward. So this group of people is coming together with our separate projects and really seeing our different locations as opportunities to drop anchor and make change where we are and then spread the word. So that's what I'm asking us all to do together. Really, pause again. Where are you on this particular journey? Everybody has some experience around race. Some of it is more salient. For some of us, that experience is more salient. We live it every day. We can't avoid it because if we kind of forget it, somebody else is going to be really quick to remind us by following us around a store or, challenging us at the border in a way that some people get challenged and others don't. So for some of us, it's more obvious that race is a part of our lives. And for many of us in this room, it might not be something you deal with every day. And yet, this piece of our experience is one of the pieces that I believe these practices have really been given to us to help ourselves and others navigate with more insight. So I've written a paper that is in the process of being turned into a book called The Way of Color Insight, which is about moving away from color blindness and color mutedness to color awareness and color insight. How can we, again, by seeing what we know we see about our differences, live our way and love our way into beloved community? So that piece of resource will be available, is out there. There's a kind of a version of it that's online already, but it's going to be worked into a more formula process going forward. But I just say that to say this. I believe in the power of our working together with this beautiful capacity that the practices that we've been talking about give us better than anything else, to hold complexity, to sit in complexity, to stand in our brilliance even as we struggle together. I believe in the capacity to go from, your Jewish grandmother and grandfather and my African American grandmother and grandfather, and what they taught us and what we know about the world through that, to this kind of connectedness. And this is what I think the world is crying out for. This kind of ability to make community just as we have, and singing together. We could dance together. We did that last night. We could do more, right? But this capacity to make community, to love and to go on and to struggle together, this, I think, is what these practices are really about. This is what I think this movement is about. This is why I'm here. I know it's why a lot of you are here, and I know I'm speaking to that, in that sense, to people who could be just as well up here and have been. So I thank you for the time. I thank you for your loving commitment to community and to making the world a better place. And I thank you for letting me join hands with you in this work. May you be well. May you be well.